Hello, versatility.
It's been a long time. Shun left you without a dope beat to step to. Remember we did that on the Patreon?
We did. And remember I was saying to you, it's been a long time. What was I saying? I forgot. Shouldn't have left you. No, shouldn't have left you is the correct lyrics. I was saying since I met you.
Yeah, it's supposed to be, it's been a long time. We shouldn't have left you without a dope beat to step to. And then obviously like it's been a long time. Hi guys. Hey, Salibonanya. Yay.
We're not like nothing. So when I get dusted, it's been a while. Like honestly, our apologies. We regret to tell you that life took over. Oh no, yeah, life did take over, didn't it?
Mm-hmm.
It's one of those things that guys were so grateful for. Everyone who messaged to say, "Are you guys okay?" There's a few people who came into our DMs like asking to go to Alan. So yeah, we're back, and we are grateful for your patience.
Yes. How do we start? Do we introduce? Okay, let's introduce our. Huh?
It's been a long time. I don't remember.
Okay, let's introduce ourselves, and then we'll talk about life, and then we'll get into it, right? Okay. So welcome to Girl in Skies podcast with me, Natasha.
And Xolie.
I sometimes go by Nat.
I sometimes go by Michelle.
Yes, Michelle. Yes, guys. Again, we've been if you've been listening, we went missing in action without any whatever. But like life as Xolie said, life took over. Some good news, some not so good news. So maybe we'll start with the not so good, and then we'll talk about the good a little bit, right? So one of the reasons why I think we put out an episode in October and then like nothing. Unfortunately, my dad passed away in October. So I had to go home and just dealing with that. So that's probably one of the main reason why we kind of like stopped a little bit, because kind of just needed to kind of process everything and kind of feel ready to kind of get back, because you can't pour from an empty cup. So that's it. And thank you so much to everyone who kind of reached out. Like if you follow me on my socials, you'll know. So thank you to everyone who reached out. Yeah, it's one of those things that I probably don't want to like talk about it too much right now, because it's still very much raw. But just thought it's worth explaining to you guys, because we don't take your support lightly. So that is what happened on the not so great side.
Yeah, it was something that I guess took us all by surprise, in that we remember you had messaged like the day before saying that your dad was coming out of hospital, he was home, and he was just the specialist checks the following day. So I mean, it came as such a shock. I remember it took me a while to actually reach out to you, because I think I was just still processing myself. I was just like, gosh, it's hard, isn't it? And so my heart certainly goes out to you. It still goes out to you. Can't wait to see you, to give you a nice big hug.
Yes, thank you. And then obviously the good, like I think people kind of know, but remember that like if people don't follow you on your social media and if they're not on Patreon, they won't know. So do you want to share? I think we talked about it, but I think it's worth you sharing your news.
So where should I start?
Oh yeah, you've had so many good news.
I'm off work. for the foreseeable future. Actually, no, it's not a foreseeable future. It's up until the next few months, I suppose, till next year. I'm off on mat leave. And interestingly enough, I can hear the reason why I'm off in the background. I just took an hour to put her down to bed. It sounds like she's up. But yeah, guys, so I was off. One of the reasons why we took our initial break is one of the initial reasons we took the break was because I was pregnant, and I was also I just needed time to kind of get ready for being a mom again. And yeah, so I gave birth to a little girl, kuthiwa nguLiana. Means it's raining because it's just been raining. I've just had an abundance of goodness in our lives. So she has just she's rained on our lives and brought such blessings. Second name is Amara, which means grace. Yeah. So she was born on the 27th of September after a very long labor. So that's me. I've done my bit for populating the earth. I have not having any more kids. I remember it's way too fresh in my mind, that pain. I still remember it. I know what they always say, they put the baby here, you forget about it. Nah, I still remember that. I still remember the pain. So it's just one of those things. But yeah, she's an absolute blessing. She's an absolute joy. She's 2 months or 9 weeks. And she's just, honestly, I love her so much. She makes me so happy. So yeah, so that's what's happened. An absolute blessing. She is an absolute blessing. Yeah. So yeah, it's been interesting. It's been good. I guess for me, like, even though I'm a second time mom, like it's not my first time giving birth and all that, there's so much that I didn't remember, so much I don't remember from having Tamara. And I think because I had that sheltered of the family as a community and all that, my mom did a lot where Tamara was concerned. I didn't do very much, to be honest. My mom let me get away with murder, and I'm eternally grateful for that. So this time it's like really more, I'm very hands-on. I'm the one who's up at night. When I had the Tamara, my mom used to be the one who used to get up in the middle of the night and sort her out, and I would sleep. But now I'm the one, I've got bags under my eyes. But yeah, she makes me very happy.
That's amazing. Congratulations, buddy. That's amazing. How are you though? Like, how are you feeling?
I feel good. I generally feel good. I am very tired, very sleep deprived. And I think, me, like, there's a few things that I like. I love food. I love sleep. So these are things that taking are quite a lot of, are very important to me, but I'm missing out on sleep. I'm still eating very much. Now I've got even an excuse to eat even more. No, I'm kidding. No, I'm not really kidding. I eat. But the sleep deprivation is hard, and the whole sleep when the baby sleeps is hard as well, because, so again, Auntie, I think I mentioned this on Patreon. I don't know if I mentioned it on the main pod, that the cows came home. The cows mooed. So my husband is my husband. So I'm just trying to now adjust to the different roles that I have. So as a wife, as a mom to Tamara, as a mom to an older sister, as a mom to Liana as well, as her, and so I'm finding my feet. And but yeah, I'm finding my feet. And I say this to say, because there's still so much that I feel like I want to be doing, and I'm very particular about some things as well, unfortunately. And I'm learning to kind of let go of, not having the mom eyes kind of seeing things like, oh gosh, that needs to be tidied up, and just appreciating each moment as it comes, because I'm like, oh, this moment is not going to happen again. So let the dishes sit in the sink or whatever it is. Yeah.
That's amazing. So what's the one thing that you're kind of like, okay, I need to, well, what did you say? You're trying to not have your mom eyes, like
Yeah.
what's an example of something where you're just like, oh, let me not care too much.
Just one.
As many as you want.
I'm kidding. No. I think, as time progresses, you learn a lot about yourself. And I'm learning a lot about myself in this particular in this particular chapter of my life, in that I'm very particular about things. I like things to have a place. Things have a place. So that's one thing I'd say. But then you find that not everybody will appreciate that place is for that thing, and people move things, or I think that's the best way I can explain it, in that. So I'm learning to kind of like, okay, it's fine that this book, like my book, even my bookshelf, like I was noticing, like, I color coordinate my books. This is Tamara. Tamara was looking for a book to read, and she's moved my orange books to white. But I've left it. It's been like that for a few weeks now. And I've just been like, no, it's fine. So that's just an example. Like, I don't have OCD, but I like things to look nice.
I get it. So you're accepting like a home that is lived, right? Oh, can you
Exactly. Yeah. That's the best way to explain it, is that it's a lived home. So, I see, like, the cushions are disarray, and it is what it. And I'm just like, yeah, it's fine. I tidy up, like, before I go to bed and stuff, because that is what gives me, like, I always feel like a tidy space gives me is a reflection of my mind. Right. So and that's why I like things to have a place. And I feel like that's the way that I operate. To see things, I compartmentalize things and put things in boxes and deal with them in that particular way. So, yeah.
Okay.
Because I went away on your Saturday. You'll see. Even my poor plants.
No, listen, I think, like you say, there's a lot of adjusting, and I think it's just like, accept the support, accept people's ideas, and I don't know, maybe there are people listening who may have advice, and
send it through.
You can form your own little community, because I just think it's interesting, like, in terms of, I remember when we were chatting about this, like, where you get information about some of these things, even being mom and stuff, especially if you consider just some of the things, maybe culturally, traditionally, that we used to do ekhaya, which are still quite helpful. But then when you're here, it's like, where do you get that information if you don't have access to ogogo? Because to know they're still quite young, and so
yeah, no, absolutely. Like, I feel like there is a void for that. And one of the things that I feel will be quite nice, and I think as time progresses, when things become a little bit more flexible, a little bit more easier, I suppose it would be like to reach out to all the moms, like, who listen to us, to see, like, where you can come in and give, where you feel like, oh, this is an area that I feel like, I have a bit of knowledge. Because I reached out to people who had kids already, like, I was like, oh, how did you, what sort of things did you feel you used when you first gave birth, so things like, because there is a lot of information out there, you know, there is a lot of things that I noticed that I purchased, which are like, actually, there's no need to buy that. So that's my own experiences, but other people's experiences are different. So you get some of like, oh, you know, buy this, buy that, buy that. And so I'd make a list and like, okay, so I'll get this. Because I found that I could relate to that person who's just maybe given birth as well. And I'm like, okay, no, that's fine. So if they use this, we're similar age group, we are similar in terms of, you know, where we are socially. So I'll probably use this as well. But yeah, I think it'd be quite nice to actually record something where you're like, okay, so, you know, in the West, or this is what people tend to have, like when you're going to hospital, these are the things that you should have as a must, you know, these are things that you have. Compare and contrast with what's happening back at home. I genuinely don't remember carrying anything into hospital when I went to deliver Tamara, but it'll be interesting to see how things have changed over the past few years. You know, what do you pack in a hospital bag and all that stuff. But yeah, I feel like that information will more so benefit people who are away from home, because when you're at home, you're surrounded by that community of aunties who will come and stay with you. Your mom, your gogos are all there. You know, it's just different. Whereas here, you know, even just, I remember I had to take Uliana to register her birth, for example. And I was speaking to one of my mom and she's like, so a long time already. I was like, yeah, because this is the life that we live here. It's like, I can't leave Unana with anybody else. So I have to be the one to kind of go there, and I have to go with her dad. So yes, this is you know, so some of the things that are not really acceptable, quote unquote, we have to kind of make do with here. And I think it's just also knowing that, you know what, it's okay to do that, and allowing yourself that grace to be like, I actually don't have another choice, and this is where I am right now, and this is what I'm doing. So I would like to do that. I'd like to have like a motherhood edition part of Girl in Skies pod, because I feel like information is information that is crucial and that is needed. So even just from the antenatal side of things, like, you know, how, you know, the appointments, these change over COVID, but the appointments you have with your midwife, the important questions to ask, and then looking at the actual delivery and birth, and then postpartum and care. So there's a lot of stuff that's happening now. So, you know, even things like, you know, just looking after your pelvic health, you know, like talking about pelvic health exercises, how often you should be doing that. And again, allowing yourself mentally the grace again to be like, you know, your body has been through a lot. For 9 months, the body has been changing shape, it's been changing. You have been changing. So how then to kind of to kind of give yourself the ability to go back, and the steps that you need to take to go back to the way you were. So I found out recently about there's a physiotherapist who deals with postpartum, like, you know, women, postpartum care, basically. So, you know, things like that, which you might not have necessarily found were talked about before, if that makes sense. So I think we need to have like an outlet for ourselves. So yeah, so I'm reaching out to any other mothers who may be interested in doing that. Let me know. Hit us up in the DMs.
Absolutely. I think that would be so interesting. And like you said, I think if you think about yourself when you were looking for information, and if that information could be there. Yeah, because things like Uti, you don't leave the house until Inkanda, whatever. Like, what do you do with Inkanda? What do you do with the umbilical cord in this country? What do you do with like there's all these different things. Like, how do people actually
deal with things?
Find the West and living, and
and speaking about things like Inkanda and stuff, you know, so Uliana was born with such a lot of hair, so you can't see it. You can't see Inkanda beating away, kind of thing. When we took her for her 8-week jabs, the way that doctors checked, like she was dehydrated or she was well, they would listen to her heart and put 2 fingers on her head. And I'm like, I wonder, like, we take care because you treat Inkanda with such respect at home. Like, you don't play around with it, you don't touch it, you don't, but here the doctor was like pressing down. I was like, this man, his fingers are going, not that, but you just think about all these things. But it's also just to be like, oh, you know what, this is the way that, this is all they know how to operate, kind of thing. But yeah, I feel like I have waffled on for a few minutes.
No, what is Inkanda in English? What, the top of the head? What is it?
It's called, is it a phalantal or something like that? Yeah.
Okay.
I'm probably saying it.
Maybe I shouldn't ask, because so I know nothing about babies. They seem like a lot of work, honestly. You mentioned about they check if the child is dehydrated. So okay, guys, forgive me. Like, so you breastfeed the baby, right? And that's their main source of food, right? Do you give them water?
It's a good question, actually. Here, like in London, in where I stay in Enfield Chase, the advice from the midwives was you don't give the baby water, because they say that you don't give the baby water. However, from home, and we used to give her, I remember giving Tamara water with a teaspoon. And I was speaking to one of my aunts a while ago. I think Uliana was complaining. She was just I think she was colicky, and she advised me. She was like, you know what, umnika manzi, like, and swaddle her, and you notice a difference. And I did that, and it worked a treat. So I think for me, there is some things that I am, absolutely fine. I will pick. I have the luxury of having been there before, having done some things that here are seen to be not the right thing to do. For example, there's a whole campaign on like putting baby back. It's like a back to sleep. So you lie them back like Nekanda, so they'll be facing up when they're sleeping. But as I'm mentioning, Uti, there was a time like a few weeks ago when she was complaining so much, and I think it was colic. I won't know what it was, but there was something that was definitely making her unhappy. And I lay her to sleep on her front, and I noticed that she slept peacefully. She slept longer. I'm not certainly advising anybody to do that. I'm speaking on my experiences. When I was back home in Zim, my mom was like, Tamarum saying this was I want to a lot longer. And of course, here I was like, oh my goodness, like it's a different territory altogether. Is this the right thing to do? But I did, very watchful over her at night, and she slept really well. And so I've been putting her on her front to sleep. So there's all these things that contradict, I suppose. And sometimes I'm just left with the decision to make, it's either I will follow the advice from the midwives or the health visitors here, or I follow my aunties or family.
Okay. So the water question wasn't a silly question.
No, I don't think so.
Guys.
I don't think so. Like, there's so many other things that have been like, oh gosh, we used to do this back home, and it's just like, nah.
I remember something about, like I said, I know nothing about babies, but like Uguti, like people would take like the small finger and then like they would dip it in water and then they would put it on the baby's mouth. Just because like, the baby's too small to like drink water, but just that they have the moisture, and then it's like like it's slowly, so it's not like overwhelming water. It's like
Yeah.
you put like a few drops with
Yeah.
your little finger.
Yeah.
I am not making this up. Guys, please comment and tell me. Like
I
I
haven't
remember seeing it.
Yeah, no, I haven't heard about that one. But I remember a teaspoon. We used to give a teaspoon of water a day. I suppose as well, like, it's really quite hot back home, and it's easy then to become dehydrated. So it can't always be the same.
Yeah. Okay. No, definitely. So I'm so excited. Please do the motherhood stuff, and we'll invite people who know more than me, because I have nothing to add. So let me, I'll be learning.
Yeah, and you could ask can babies drink water question.
Yeah. No. So have fun with it.
Oh,
Okay, so talk about home. So we're recording this. We have to say when, because things change so quickly.
yes.
Like
The
on the
1st of
December. Man, I wanted to go home. Well, I was hoping to go back home after Christmas, up until sometime in January. And when was it? I feel like it's a week or so, like some days ago, where there was like breaking news, like a new variant has been discovered and reported by South African scientists. And literally within a space of 24 hours, it was first like, okay, there's this new variant. We're learning more about it. It seems to be highly transmissible, blah, 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 blah. We're like, okay, fine. We've heard this before. And Delta variant here, this, that. Then the next thing, it was the UK first, I remember. Sajid Javid, who's the health secretary, was like, okay, so what we're doing now is we're banning flights. We're banning people coming in from South Africa, Zimbabwe, Eswatini, Lesotho, Namibia. There's like 6 countries. It was like with immediate effect. So basically, if you're a citizen, you could come back, but if you were going to come back after the 28th of November, you then had to quarantine, to go to like a government facility and quarantine for 10 days, which is like 2,000 plus pounds. So literally within 24 hours, people's plans were just messed up. People who, I know someone who literally was like, they got the news when they touched down in I think in Harare. Yeah, they were, and they would come from the UK, and literally they arrived, and there's like, so what do you do then? Do you like not stay? Do you turn back? And then over time, okay, and then this is the thing: Zambia wasn't included, Mozambique wasn't included, and then people were kind of like, okay, could you game the system by going to Zambia? And then like within that, they were like, okay, it's expanded to now include Zambia, Mozambique. And then someone tweeted and was like, were they looking at the old Nyasaland map, when Zambia and whatever were like one country?
Yes. And then all of a sudden, like, it clocked. It's, oh no, we need to close those countries as well.
Yeah, and then it's kind of I mean, that is so devastating, first of all. Yeah, sorry.
It is. It's just absolutely heartbreaking. And I think if we're looking like retrospectively at the past events in regards to, so now we know that because it was almost been called the South African variant, we know that it's already been identified earlier in places like Belgium, and if you look at the numbers, like here in Germany, it's like, guys, really, will clock in between 40 to 50,000 cases, COVID positive cases in a day. Like, how is it like possible that this Omarion variant isn't already here? because it makes sense. That's why the numbers are so, so high. But it feels as if it's like, like, why didn't we, and I was saying this to you earlier, we should not forget that this started with China. If it wasn't for the Chinese, we didn't close their borders, and yes, I know that we learn from our mistakes, we learn from the past, and you make changes in the future. But I feel like this whole Southern African bloc is just absolutely devastating. The amount of people who have been planning on going home, who haven't been home because of COVID, who haven't seen their families, and, have been getting vaccinated, getting vaccine passports, whatever it is, getting boosters so that they can go home. Now, when they get home, you find that, of course, Zimbabwe has also introduced the whole quarantine. Like, it's almost like they've looked at it and like, oh, what can we do to make things more difficult for our Zimbabweans? Like, it's just absolutely heartbreaking. And I feel like it's more of it's a financial move as well. Because it's just ridiculous to think that the amount of revenue, the amount of capital that they could have made in December with the amount of people I think the island would have been a lot lighter this December, because I know so many people who are planning on going to Zimbabwe, but of course things have now unfortunately changed.
Absolutely. And like when you're saying about Zim, it's just like, I remember someone once, I don't know whether they tweeted this, I saw it somewhere, where it was like, in Zim, you always think things are going to get worse, and you think you've reached the basement, just to find that there is another. and that's what they've just done, right? So people were like, oh my God, maybe let's try and figure out how we can game the system. Maybe can we go to can we go to another country and then come back for and then maybe like go to Ghana or go to something, to kind of mitigate the cost of the quarantine of coming back. And now you have to, so for example, if you're coming from the UK, you now have to contend with the fact that possibly, if these rules remain in place, right, when you come back, you will have to quarantine. So that is already 2,000 plus on your budget. If you are and then now you have to think about Zim, right? So they say Duguti Kona with the Zim. So Nick Mangwana, the most incompetent information secretary in the world, honestly. So they've now put the statutory instrument where they say the quarantine period will be for 10 days. The traveler may self-quarantine at any premises cleared for the purpose in advance by an enforcement officer. What does that mean, right? Because so it's up to the enforcement officer to clear what premises you use.
Oh, really? So you can quarantine it in your home as long as this enforcement officer has deemed it safe?
I feel like the language is so like unclear, so that it allows for corruption. Because honestly, like all these ZANU kids, are they really gonna quarantine? And then they said these regulations are for 2 weeks and will be reviewed then. 2 weeks today, at the time of recording, is 1 December, which means that reviewed 15 December.
Oh my God.
That is too short a time
before Christmas.
Like, for example, someone like me, who I wanted to travel, if I was going to travel, I was going to travel like on the 26th or 27th, like after Christmas.
Yeah, after Christmas.
I can't stay in this like limbo where I don't know what the heck is happening, so it's just so frustrating in that way.
It's mad, isn't it? And I feel like that's Nick Mangwana, his initial tweet, when he said, it was just like, I've forgotten what he said, but it was talking about the quarantine, saying that you need to quarantine. There was like no information. It was a tweet with no information. It was information with no information. because it was almost like it didn't give information about how long the quarantine is. Do you quarantine at home? Do you quarantine in a hotel? Like, it was just like, oh, if you're coming into Zimbabwe and you now have to quarantine. It's just like, come on, just, people are already anxious as it is. You want to be giving information that they can use, but it's not leaving people with questions in their head. Okay, Mate, what exactly am I supposed to do? It was information without giving information, if that makes sense. It was almost like a tick box exercise to say, oh, I've talked about quarantining when you come into Zimbabwe, but not clear at all. Like, yes, I understand that you're restricted by the amount of characters in your tweets, but do a thread at least and give people valid information.
Exactly. And then he mentioned something like, he was like, oh, we have to remember, what happened last year when people traveled in December, and then a lot of people were sick after. And it was like, okay, Nick Mangwana, but last year, December, no one in the world had received a vaccine, right? Now you have people that are double, triple, quadruple vaxxed, right? You cannot, like, I am so upset. And if by contrast, if you look at Cyril Ramaphosa came out and he was like, we think this is discriminatory, right? Which were being punished for sharing information. And then he went on to say, I saw something today where he was in some conference, and he was like, he feels like it's discriminatory, it's come out to show that this Omicron this Omarion variant had been discovered elsewhere. All these countries are now saying, oh yes, we had this case, right? And why are they not having the ban? It will cripple like tourism, like our economies, like December is a peak time. And then he went on to say that he feels like some of the African nations, like, for example, like Rwanda, or also like, oh, if you're coming from Southern Africa, like all these Egypt and stuff like that, they're like, oh, quarantine and everything. It's like, well, some of these African countries are also they're acting like our former colonizers. So because African countries should really come together. So even like what Zimbabwe is doing is kind of like, it's ridiculous. Do you know how much money Zimbabwe is going to make during this period? Even now, if by any chance in 2 weeks they're like, oh, forget about it, and maybe even in the UK, if they're like, oh, all these countries are like, oh, but people are just not going to travel anymore.
People. First of all, you have to appreciate that people need time. So time is a massive factor, because you need to get annual leave, or you need to get time off work unless you're self-employed, and you need to plan. You need to plan ahead for these things. So if you're saying to somebody on the 15th of December, oh yeah, by the way, it's now okay for you to come, and we know that as well, as time progresses, things get a lot more expensive. So your tickets get more expensive for going home. You need to bear in mind too, especially if you're coming from the UK, you need to quarantine when you come back. So that's an extra added cost. And also the time factor is that how much time do you spend at home? Because you now need to come back here and allow yourself time to be in the quarantine hotel. It's absolutely crazy. And I think as well, like I saw this WHO epidemiologist also mentioned the same thing, saying that it's like, I just don't understand how this ban on Southern Africa has happened. People are vaccinated. There's been a big drive to vaccinate people. We are now vaccinated, double or triple, as you said, and yet you still find that we are still being restricted. It's like, how, like, when does COVID? We're tired of COVID, please. The bats, we are tired of COVID. I'm exhausted of COVID. To think that we're now back again, is wear the mask, don't wear the mask. It's fine to be inhaling other people's air when you're out in the supermarkets. Now it's not fine because of the Omarion variant. It's just like, it's exhausting. It's just mentally exhausting.
It's absolutely exhausting. And it's also exhausting because, like, there's absolutely no leadership. It's it's like things that honestly, this whole like trying to get back to complete normal is ridiculous. Like, oh, they were asking Sajid Javid, like, oh, about oh, should people work from home or should they go to the office? It's like, oh no, they should still go. I'm sorry, this whole like, oh, you guys are trying to like prop up your Costa, Starbucks, people that put money in your politics. No, because that's what it is, right?
Yeah.
They want us to go back to work so that we can buy expensive sandwiches from their
coffee,
right? And the thing is, like, you can't go. We cannot go back to normal. Like, we have seen that virtual, all the stuff, it works. So
works fine.
Convince people to be like, okay, go back on filthy London transport.
Yeah.
So that there's just that. And then like with the Zim thing, Zim is just such a disappointment. I know people who are getting married, have like memorials, have got so many things that are happening, and it's now all up in the air. And a lot of people, hadn't seen their families in a while, and actually, because of COVID and the pandemic, this was pushing them to be like, you know what, I have to see my folks. But
it's happening.
But
it almost feels like with Zim, it's like more of a knee-jerk reaction. It feels like they haven't really thought this through, because again, I think from a financial perspective, tourism would have been crazy, like for particularly this December. If you think about, I know just in Bulawayo that there was the homecoming tour, so I don't know if other places like Harare and stuff, what they had planned. So people have already invested, you invest also mentally that this is going to be a time you're going to be at home with your friends or whoever and see your family, and you have a great time, like with entertainment and all these things. And then all of a sudden it stops. But I feel like, I don't know, I feel like it's almost a bit of a political move as well, because I wonder if they're thinking to having such a large crowds of diaspora in the, like on the ground would be a lot to contend with. So I don't know. I don't know.
Yeah, I think they also just want to make money as well. Like, it's not based on any science whatsoever. Because there's things that you can say, okay, instead of producing a 72-hour negative test, we were shortening the period to 48 hours. We're also going to say on arrival, you take a PCR test. So when you get to the airport, you take the test, you wait
before
2 hours, however long it's going to be processed, you pay $100 for it. People will still do that. And then if it's if it's negative, you go home, you take another day to, like, they can come up with stuff like that, like take another day, 3-4 tests or whatever it is they want to do. But I think you have to be like, it's unclear whether any scientists in Zimbabwe were even consulted about this approach. It is just I don't know, it's and things like I think I said this in the Patreon episode, like I was in Zim, right, like in October, and honestly, in terms of, I know what they do say is that there's low uptake in Southern African countries, but there's reasons for that as well. Like, for example, in Zim, because people are getting Sinopharm and the Chinese vaccines, which are recognized by the World Health Organization. But for example, like a country like the UK, for a long while, it was not on their list of recognized vaccines, right? So if you're there, then there becomes this kind of like almost vaccine hierarchy, right? So there are people who are going to be like, Tina, why should we take these that are not going to be, because they were saying, oh, if you're coming from Zim and you would be considered as an unvaccinated people, but they changed it now to say, oh, they're going to recognize all the World Health Organization. So there's all that as well. And obviously there's more that the government can do to kind of drive people taking the vaccine. But in terms of just COVID protocol, my experience of Zim and South Africa, honestly, was like masks, everywhere you're going, hand sanitizer, Like there were people that were actually like in stores, they'll be standing outside with their hand sanitizer. Some places you go, they're taking your temperature. Like before you go, there's even like a temperature. Like in terms of the protocol, it was so much better than the UK. So much better than the UK.
I can imagine, because the way that we have relaxed here is like, honestly, like sometimes I look and I'm like, oh gosh, like what is COVID? Because it's completely relaxed. You know, prior to this variant, the Omarian variant, people had relaxed so much, you know. And to be honest, so had I. Like, I'm not going to lie, like that I wasn't going to shops without wearing a mask, because I was just like, you know, it is what it is. But then now you get told to, oh, be careful of the amount, be careful where you're breathing in other people's like exhaled air kind of thing. So wear your masks. It's important to wear masks in shops. So supermarkets have now introduced mandatory masks, but then again you go in and so have Transport for London, but you still go into supermarkets. I was in Tesco the other day, and there's still quite a large number of people who are quote unquote exempt. So I think people are tired, you know, tired from. Do you have something to say?
We've got the latest co-host.
Yes, so I think people are exhausted. Number one, we have followed the rules. We have been told to get vaccinated. We've been vaccinated, and I think the other thing as well, talk about getting vaccinated, is how they've made it mandatory for care bless you, for care workers to be vaccinated. I think that the deadline is, or the target is, by April 2022, so next year. And I've noticed as well that when people are advertising for jobs, they're making it known that if you're applying for this job, you need to be willing, like in the healthcare field, you need to be willing to be triple vaccinated, you know. And it's just like, where does it stop? So now we are at a point where even freedom of choice is being taken away from us, and yet we are still, you know, you still find that you have to quarantine when you go to Zimbabwe. So you're doing all this here, you know, hoping to make life easier for yourself, but you find that it's still not good enough, like right now, for you to travel back home. I feel like it's really unfair, and I feel like it's taking away people's power to choose, you know, especially with the fact that we had this discussion that, you know, last year we were all about the NHS workers. We were all about the people who looked after like our friends and our families during such a trying time. We, out on Thursdays, people with their pots and pans, you know, the time visa for the NHS workers. And it's the same people who do not get a good pay rise. I think they got like, what percentage they get? So 1%, I've forgotten what percentage it was. We do not honor them in getting good, to give them a good pay rise. Yeah, most of the NHS are earning way below what they should be getting. Second of all, you're now getting to the point where it's the same people that we celebrated, that we are saying to them that, you know what, in order for you to continue doing the job that you quote unquote love doing, you have to be vaccinated. And yet people who are in accounts, people who are in marketing, they carry on. These are people who haven't had their lives completely affected by COVID. Some people like who were working in ICU, so many people dying, affected their health mentally. These are the people that we are also punishing, to say you need to, whether you want to or not, you have to be vaccinated. It's very unfair, isn't it?
Yeah, I think it's very unfair. I think although I don't, you know, I'm just one of those people who's like, okay, I'll follow what the experts are saying. And obviously for a time, you know, the right thing has been to follow the science. But I mean, clearly, like the politics is no longer following the science. I think for me, with the healthcare workers, my issue is more the treatment of
mm,
them. Like
mm,
I can see why healthcare particularly would be more critical to have more people vaccinated
mm.
because of the transmissibility. Hey, I'm using words that hey no, before COVID,
10 o'clock.
before COVID, did I even know what transmissibility was? Ha!
Yes.
God help me. And the
Cool.
infection rate, because my understanding,
Mm,
like so how someone explained it to me, because I was kind of, I think maybe putting some uh vaccinated anti whatever anti booster rhetoric, but anyway, they were like, no, because about the whole mutation thing, that obviously it's more likely to mutate, like and become sort of more dangerous if it's hosted by someone who's not vaccinated. So but
right.
if more people are vaccinated, COVID just remains as the COVID, the regular COVID that we've known. But if there's a lot of people that are not vaccinated who become hosts of COVID, even if
Mm,
they get well themselves, it mutates and becomes worse and whatever. So I can understand that. But then I also think that it's just the way that is communicated. It's just the way healthcare workers have been vilified. I think particularly in the UK, I think that the leadership has failed, and at any given point they try and find scapegoats. I remember there was a time last year where the scapegoats were influencers who all flew out to Dubai, right? But it was, they were not breaking any laws.
no.
They could do that, and then
Mm,
they were now blaming them like, oh, you're traveling. But I mean, no, there's a loophole. You allowed these people to travel, so they
yes.
find scapegoats, right?
Yes.
What, and even now with the whole SADC thing, it's an easy scapegoat. We've shut out Southern African countries. To be honest, the average person, it's us who care, right? But in terms of, I mean, imagine if you close the US again, that would be noise, right? If you close US, Canada, whatever, it's taken, oh, so much time to open up those corridors. The noise that they would make, it would cause so much. But for us, it's easy, you know. They can just say whatever, and then we just talk on social media and nothing. And that's another thing. I feel like our embassies are so weak, our leadership is so weak. I mean, it's only Cyril Ramaphosa, but why can't Nick Mangwana be more useful and sort of come out and say, this is unfair and this is why? Like, I just feel like there's just Nelson. Okay, let me not talk about Nelson Chamisa because I get in trouble when I do. He was tweeting, "Oh, happy December." I'm like, happy December.
Done. He's not happy.
Like, say something. Like, like you guys have
Be angry.
be angry. That's the thing with the Zim thing, is no one is angry.
Mm.
Like, are you okay?
No
Ah,
one is angry enough to do anything. Like that's the problem. It's just like, yeah, okay. But do you think it's also just because like we've been hearts done by, it's almost like, gosh, I feel like it's like beating a beaten dog. Is that the word? That's the term I've forgotten. But it's almost like, already down and out. And then you come out and then you like, oh, I'm giving you this extra rod to beat you on. And it's just like, yeah, okay, fine. I feel like that's the attitude that we have. Like it's just people are just so, I don't know if people are just tired and there's nothing more that can be done to be like, oh, you know what, it's almost like, oh yeah, it's just another day, something else that you're kind of giving us. Because you're right, I feel like people are just genuinely not, they're not angry enough.
mm.
Like
And you
people
need
need to
voice.
voice like their frustrations and be like, this is just not right.
Yeah, and you need the big voices. Why haven't we seen an open letter to the UK embassy, to
Mm,
the UK embassy in Harare from the
mm,
government, saying, we think this is unfair and this is,
mm,
these
mm,
are quick wins, right? Even if the UK may not change their mind,
mm.
those things have channels, right? Are they knocking on the foreign, or whatever, foreign and Commonwealth office? Are they talking to them? Because that department has like people that man certain countries. You know, tell us these things. Honestly, I don't know. I think if Xolie, if Zimbabwe was given to you and I, we could run it better. Honestly,
I
that
agree.
that country is just, no,
So,
these
so
old
you
men
mean to tell me that all, all Nelson had to say was "Hello, December." Like hello, December.
You know what,
Easy style.
let me check Twitter, because I remember I was flabbergasted. I was just
Do
like,
you remember that song? I went to Kezi.
yeah, hello,
Hello, December.
what did he say? It's a new month and the last month of the year. A lot has happened, but more is about to happen. It's going to be exciting! Exclamation mark. Thank you for your unfaltering support and never-ending love. Happy new month to you, my dearest friend. Do you know what?
How sad.
You know what?
How sad. Like maybe no, you know what? Maybe he's tweeting from a different Zimbabwe. Maybe he's not tweeting from the Zimbabwe that we know.
Uh, uh,
Maybe there's two Zimbabwe's. Maybe you know. Maybe we just need to appreciate that there's two Zimbabwe's out there because wow.
and then you have an equally like Ed. I can't even listen to him anymore. Like I just like there were clips of him announcing, what was happening.
Or was he inebriated?
Allegedly. Yo, we don't have money on this podcast. Please.
Allegedly.
We do not have money on this podcast. Listen, no, he was just, it's just like, like it doesn't instill any confidence when these people are talking. You're just like, I want to switch off my TV. Like, what are you on about? I am so convinced, like literally, like this, I'll stop my rant. I am so convinced that I know 5 people, if we all came together, we would do a much better job than these incompetent old men. Honestly, they are what are they doing now with this December thing? Your own government? Anyway, that is my red list rant because
listen, it's definitely something to keep an eye on. I think in the next few days, see how things change, and hopefully they change for the better. I hope. I hope.
so because
I don't know. I don't know, man. It's tough.
You
It's tough out there.
Tango Foxtrot, yo, because but my heart goes out to everyone. Like I said, I wanted to travel, but all things considered, my travel, was just more just for I just need the sun. I just need to sort out some things. But there's some people that are really traveling for critical milestone events, and it's just so hard. These are people's lives. People are getting married. People have not seen their parents. People have poorly parents. The number of people that have passed away and people just couldn't travel. There's so many things that were, like for now, okay, sizabutana abantwana babuye. Someone tweeted their father passed away and none of the kids could go. Like this was probably during peak lockdown, and they were now supposed to do the memorial, and now again this. So these are real people's lives. So this whole travel thing,
it's a lot. It is a lot.
But anyway, it's one of those things. Hopefully, in weeks to come, but we should just continue making as much noise as we can because this is so unfair. It's so unfair.
Can we end on a positive note, please? It's so depressing when you talk about Zim. Like I feel like Zim is just.
I know it's so depressing. But I was gonna say that I wanted to talk about the Natasha Thahane thing, but I don't know do you have time or not?
Yeah.
Okay, but before I do, on the and shout out to people in long distance relationship. I think time and time again, the God, the universe, as the kids say these days, shows us that this is a thing that should not be attempted. There are always signs. Now there's Omarion, Omarosa.
Omarosa. Is that
so,
West African?
so I think to all the, I say this as a former long distance and as someone who has flirted with the idea of long distance, that you know what, guys, let's give up. I think look where you are. Lapha lihlala khona ubuhamba uqaphele, just shine your eyes, as the Nigerians say. I think forget this long distance thing, or otherwise maybe just take the plunge and just do something. But you know what, if you love your person, I'd like you to go back to probably episode 2 of Getting Skies, where a valuable advice was given, that the only way to make a long and it was Xolie who said that, who's acting like she doesn't know.
Trying to remember.
That the guitar told us. No, it wasn't you. We were just reporting what had been told to us. Is it just a game told us that to make a long distance relationship work,
Yes.
you need 4 people, 2 on each side. So there's 2 of you, you need 4. And that's how you keep it working. We'll let you figure it out, kids, what that means. So,
oh gosh, man, it feels like ages ago.
So,
someone is just a game. Always out there with words of wisdom.
Exactly. Where it goes wrong is where there's 3. 1 year short. You need 2 people on each side so that you don't send each other unnecessary paragraphs.
Yeah.
And
I love you. Hey, have you seen these messages of someone proclaiming their love? Is it hey, nyawuthanda? When they reply to hey, saying or something like that. Let me see. It's tough. Tough out here. But anyway, yeah. So carry on, Natasha.
Okay, so quickly, we'll make it really, really quick. So Natasha Thahane is like, I love her. First of all, we share the same name. I think she's absolutely gorgeous. I follow her. So she is a South African actress, most famously known for playing the character Wendy. I think it's Wendy on Blood and Water. Can you Google Natasha? Can you Google if I'm saying the right thing? But yeah. So she went on Mac G's Podcast and Chill, which is a South African podcast, which is like the top South African podcast. And she was talking to Mac G. So I remember like watching it. I think it was her, Mac G. Soul was in the background, right? The co-host. And then she talked about how she got a place at New York Film University, and then she needed tuition money, right? And Natasha Thahane, she's kind of my understanding, like she's related to Desmond Tutu. She comes from a connected family, and let me see if I can.
Right, it's Blood and Water.
And does she play Wendy? Yeah, I think so. Anyway, yes. Let me try and see if I can play this and if it works.
I think I spent around about I think the entire year was $1 million, and like it was $1 million plus, It's $1 million plus.
Good investment.
But now there's still good, like there's all these things. It was a lot. And then like I'm like, Mama, I need to go back to school. I've been accepted. Now Ganje, I didn't sign my second year at the Queen.
Yeah.
So angazi ngizenzani. This was so ngicela uthi something. And then she managed to speak to arts and culture, and then they gave me funding, but I only asked for the first semester because I was scared.
So she was innocently talking about, going to
Yeah.
whatever, needing money. She then spoke to Mambalega. She said, Mama, ngicela imali. Okay, guys, forgive me because I'm not deep in South African politics, but I think mom, okay, the person she's talking about, I think was the South African speaker or a politician. Correct me, right? But so, and then went to the department, and then she got funding. Ha! So people were like,
That's
hold up.
you
What?
benefited by having a connection in the government.
And what I don't know is it sounds like it was a grant, not a loan. It doesn't sound like, because obviously some funding, like it's just a grant, you don't pay it back. And that's what it sounds like this was. So it was so interesting because, like I said, I'm a fan of hers. I think she's a great actress. And then Mac G was like, good investment. And yeah, I was just like, this is like nepotism. This is like corruption 101.
That's what happens in Zim all the time.
Yes. Yeah. That's what happens in Zim all the time. And the fact that she probably didn't ever see it that way. But the fact that you can say, I can talk to so and so, and then they open doors for me, and then she's now come out and sort of retracted and said, oh no, we're just in the same building. She didn't help me or whatever. I mean, okay. But the reason I wanted to bring it up was because I remember I was speaking to a friend of mine who was telling me, Uti, like in some interactions that they had, Uti, like people who are more like maybe like Zim people who are very much like, you know what, we need to remove ZANU, like young people who are more maybe progressive, that actually like when you meet young ANC people, that actually they have more in common with the ZANU kids.
Right.
Than them. So you almost like can't speak the same language with them because they all understand that like benefiting from
the system.
So they become friends because their backgrounds are the same, and when I listened to that I was like, oh, that makes sense. And then there's another thing, which is like Natasha Thahane is a good actress, so it's not a bad investment.
Yes.
Because it's something that she is, and it kind of reminded me
from it as well.
Exactly. And it kind of reminded me like in Zim of like someone like Rubeneko, right? Who is an amazing presenter. She's an amazing host. Like she's so talented, right? But we can't deny that a lot of these people that get opportunities, it's because they're ZANU kids.
Yeah.
Right? How many more people, who are not connected could be? Because in a country like that, you shouldn't have one or two key people. We should have a plethora. We should have, like in South Africa, like it'll be a diverse host of people. So I just thought it was just like, it's just blatant.
You see, like, and that is how people keep like you notice that there is this almost like a form of generational wealth, because it's the rich who maintain their richness and get richer, whereas there'll be some other kids out there who maybe have got the skills but do not have the connections to put them in touch with put them in touch with people who can help their skills to grow or to develop. So it's those people who are like, oh, it's such an amazing artist, but waswela umuntu ozamfaka in the right, who push them up in the right direction. But you notice that it's the people who are already connected, who are already in that circle of wellness, if I can use that, because it's not necessarily that you need to, like, who you don't necessarily need to be in healthcare to kind of benefits from, do you know, I hope I'm making sense, but it's just knowing somebody in that wider circle who can be like, oh yeah, I know a doctor so and so who can link you up, and that's how you progress. Oh, I know an artist in so and so who can, and that's how you progress. I know a producer, and that's how you progress. So it's just like the connections, and that is how the nepotism, and that is how people benefit from that whole circle. And it's sad because other people like are not getting, are not getting the same opportunities. And it's for them, I feel like, if such an opportunity like what Natasha had, if that had fell upon someone who could then uplift their family, for somebody who was maybe in a low socioeconomic background, and someone's like, oh, you know what, this person would be a good actress because they're or a good actor, and help them to push them along. And how life-changing that would be for that whole circle, for that whole generation and generations after that. But life is not always straightforward, I suppose.
Yeah, but it's just an interesting observation. And even like a lot of, well, I was gonna say a lot of, but quite a few of that come, even these prominent DJs, say in South Africa and Janjani, if you look at some of their backgrounds, like they're like ANC kids as well in some way. I mean, not to say that they've directly benefited, but I think there's something about where you come, where there's money and opportunities, you are able to tap into your creative side. Right? You're given that room to do that. But when there's not, then you can't. But yeah, no. This is it. Hopefully when we talk again, guys, the travel landscape will have changed for the better.
Yes, indeed. Yeah, we'll see how things go. But yeah. And also just to kind of talk about a forecast of what's happening, and before we sign off, what's happening the next few episodes. So if there is anything that you have, if you have any dilemmas, let's do it. I really missed our dilemma episodes. So send us a message, DM us, email us, whatever it is, so that we can start compiling those little issues that you may have, so we can talk them out.
And we've got coming up, so we'll put this episode out, and then we've done some interviews that will be coming out as well. Xolie did one, I did one. God did one with an author, I did one with a singer. Really excited for you guys to see that. And then one of the things that we've been talking about is we want to like do more interviews and stuff. But I think what we'll try and do is do it in such a way that we'll still have like the regular podcast, and then wherever we have like interviews, that will be like an add-on for that week, right? So where we can, it won't be like, you won't just get the interview, because I think we have to view interviews as a sort of different thing. It's like a different bucket in itself. So because I was thinking about that when like there's podcasts that I listen to, and then because I like maybe the banter that they have, and then when they bring in like a guest and it's like an interview, I'm like, oh, okay, yeah, fine, but I miss the banter. So I think that's what we're going to try and do, but we're definitely going to want to talk to more people and all that stuff. So and also, guys, if you don't follow us on YouTube, because some of the stuff maybe will just be YouTube content and all that stuff, so make sure that you are following us on Gettings, guys. But I'm super excited for the interviews, because yeah, I'm super excited. But yeah, any last words?
No last words.
Yeah,
I'm all good.
Cool. So guys, if you come to the end of this podcast, because it's long, what should people hashtag and say?
Oh gosh, I can't even think.
If you've come to the end of this podcast, I'm trying to think something about maybe long distance.
Hashtag long distance.
Yeah. So if you're on Twitter, tag us at Gellis Guys, put hashtag long distance. If you remember, put hashtag long distance and then a comment, do long distance, you feel it or something.
Oh, guys.
On Instagram, Facebook as well. Yeah,
for sure. Now,
yeah.
all good. Look forward to it. Look forward to hearing your thoughts, guys.
All right. So signing out. Bye.